This is the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. I am Manoj Mainkar, and in the next half hour, I'll bring to you news updates from India and around the world, awareness videos on coronavirus by Government of India, yoga on radio, and a lot more. We'll begin with the news updates.
This is the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. The news read by Maria Albina Michael. The Egyptian military said it has killed at least 19 militants in raids and airstrikes against an Islamic insurgency in the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula, in clashes that also left at least 5 casualties among its troops. Colonel Tamer El-Rifai said in a statement late Saturday that the raids and airstrikes took place last week in the towns of Bir al-Abed, Rafah and Sheikh Zuyed. The military statement did not specify the number of soldiers killed. Other officials said 2 officers, including a colonel and a lieutenant, and 3 conscript soldiers were killed when an explosive device hit their vehicle on Saturday while taking part in a campaign against the militants in central Sinai. A Somali police officer says at least 8 civilians were killed when a minibus hit a roadside bomb outside the capital on Sunday morning. Abdullahi Ahmed says the minibus hit the bomb in Hawa Abdi area near Mogadishu. The death toll may rise because many of the surviving passengers were seriously wounded, Ahmed said. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the blast. However, Somalia's extremist group Al-Shabaab, which is allied to Al-Qaeda, has carried out a series of bomb attacks in the area in recent months. Tense protests over the death of George Floyd and other police killings of black people grew Saturday from New York to Tulsa to Los Angeles, with police cars set ablaze and reports of injuries mounting on all sides as the country convulsed through another night of unrest after months of coronavirus lockdowns. The protests, which began in Minneapolis following Floyd's death on Monday after a police officer pressed a knee on his neck until he stopped breathing, have left parts of the city a grid of broken windows, burned out buildings, and ransacked stores. The unrest has since become a national phenomenon as protesters decry years of deaths at police hands. Overnight curfews were imposed in more than a dozen major cities nationwide, including Atlanta, Denver, Los Angeles, Minneapolis, and Seattle. More than 1,300 people have been arrested in 16 cities since Thursday, including over 500 on Friday in Los Angeles. Pope Francis cheerfully greeted people in St. Peter's Square on Sunday as he resumed his practice of speaking to the faithful there for the first time since a coronavirus lockdown began in Italy and at the Vatican in early March. Instead of the tens of thousands of people who might have turned out on a similarly brilliantly sunny day like in pre-pandemic times, perhaps a few hundred came to the square on Sunday, standing well apart from others or in small family groups. Francis cited those who have been infected by the virus or who died in the Amazon region, especially the particularly vulnerable indigenous people. He prayed that no one in the world lacked medical assistance, especially due to the economic priorities. Persons are more important than the economy, Francis said. Nepal has reported 2 more COVID-19 fatalities. According to the Ministry of Health and Population, a 2-year-old girl from Bajura district died of COVID-19 on Sunday. She is the youngest victim of coronavirus in Nepal. Health Ministry also confirmed death of a 35-year-old man from Dailik district on Saturday. The total number of COVID deaths have gone up to 8. In the daily press briefing, ministry spokesperson said 166 more persons tested positive for COVID-19 during the last 24 hours, taking the total number to 1,567. There are 1,339 active cases, while 220 people have recovered so far. Meanwhile, in view of increasing threat of COVID-19, Nepal government has extended nationwide lockdown till 14th June. A total of 369 domestic flights carrying 35,055 passengers operated in India till 5 p.m. on Sunday, said Civil Aviation Minister Hardeep Singh Puri. Domestic services were suspended in India due to the coronavirus-induced lockdown and resumed after a gap of 2 months on 25th May. Earlier during the day, he said a total of 529 flights carrying 45,646 passengers had operated on Saturday. Indian carriers operated a total of 2,340 flights till Friday, 428 on Monday, 445 on Tuesday, 460 on Wednesday, 494 on Thursday, and 513 on Friday. Indian Navy ship INS Jalashva will sail from Colombo port in Sri Lanka today, carrying around 700 Indian nationals back to Tuticorin in Tamil Nadu. This will be the first operation as part of Operation Samudra Sethu from Sri Lanka to repatriate Indian citizens as part of Vande Bharat mission. The ship will reach Colombo this morning and will depart by late evening. Indian High Commission in Colombo is making final arrangements for the repatriation with support of Sri Lankan Navy and other authorities. COVID-related social distancing norms have been catered on board and evacuees would be provided basic amenities and medical facilities during the sea passage. Indian Navy has already repatriated 1,488 Indian nationals from Male to Kochi during the previous phase of operations. 200 special trains will run across the country from today. These services will be in addition to Shramik special trains and 30 special AC trains. Railway Ministry said more than 1,45,000 passengers will travel on day one. Around 26 lakh passengers have booked their tickets for advance reservation period from 1st to 30th of June. These trains are fully reserved trains having both AC and non-AC classes. General coaches have reserved sitting accommodation and there will be no unreserved coach in the train. The passengers will have to reach the station 90 minutes in advance to facilitate thermal screening at the station. All passengers will be screened and only asymptomatic passengers will be allowed to board the train. The first phase of nationwide unlock starts today. Unlock 1 will allow a phased reopening of most activities across India. Centre on Saturday issued Unlock 1 guidelines limiting the lockdown only to the containment zones. Government has allowed unfettered movement of goods and persons between states and within states. Several states have also released guidelines for the fifth phase of lockdown or Unlock 1. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has urged people to be more careful in their fight against COVID-19 as the country prepares to unlock. In his Mann Ki Baat program, Mr. Modi said, becoming careless or lackadaisical cannot be an option. He said as economic activities have resumed, social distancing has become even more important now. The Prime Minister said there should be no laxity and people should maintain 2 gaj ki doori, wear face masks and stay at home to the extent possible. The Prime Minister said after so many hardships, the country's deft handling of the situation should not go in vain. He said the road ahead is a long one and we are fighting a pandemic about which little was previously known. And that is the end of the news bulletin.
Now, it's time for today's commentary.
You are with us on the General Overseas Service of All India Radio. We now bring you today's commentary. Prime Minister urges caution while fighting COVID-19. It is scripted and read by Kaushik Rai, AIR news analyst. Addressing the people in the monthly Mann Ki Baat program broadcast on the All India Radio Network, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the battle against coronavirus has been fiercely waged in the country through collective efforts. He urged people to be more alert and careful in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, even as major segments of the Indian economy has been opened up. The Prime Minister said 200 train services have resumed with adequate precautionary measures. He added that air services have also resumed and industry too is returning to normalcy. He cautioned that there should be no laxity and suggested people to maintain 2 yards distancing, wear face masks and stay at home to the extent possible. Mr. Modi stressed that after so many hardships, the country's deft handling of the situation should not go in vain. The Indian Prime Minister hailed the spirit of service shown by our people and called it the biggest strength. He said, "We are familiar with the dictum Seva Paramo Dharma. Service is a joy in itself." Expressing his deepest regards for the medical personnel across the country, the Prime Minister hailed the spirit of service on part of the doctors, nursing staff, sanitation workers, police personnel and media persons of the country. He also praised the remarkable work of women self-help groups during this crisis. He cited the examples of common countrymen like K.C. Mohan of Tamil Nadu, Gautam Das of Agartala, Raju, a Divyang from Pathankot, who went out of their way despite limited means to help others in this time of crisis. Prime Minister added that numerous stories of perseverance of women's self-help groups are coming to the fore from all corners of the country. Mr. Modi also commended the efforts of individuals for playing a very proactive role in dealing with this pandemic. He gave the example of Rajendra Yadav of Nashik, who devised a sanitation machine attached to his tractor. Many shopkeepers have installed big pipelines in their shops to adhere to the Do Gaz Ki Duri. Sharing his pain at the sufferings and hardships of people due to the pandemic, the Prime Minister said coronavirus has afflicted the underprivileged laborers and workers the most. The centre, state governments, each and every department and institution are working hand in hand for relief at full speed. He stated that the entire country understands and feels what they are going through, and everyone from the centre, states to local governance bodies are toiling round the clock. Prime Minister said government has taken several steps in this direction. He added that recent decisions taken by the centre have opened up vast possibilities of village employment, self-employment and small-scale industry. He expressed confidence that Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign will take the country to greater heights in this decade. The Prime Minister reinstated that during the present corona pandemic, people everywhere want to know more about yoga and Ayurveda and adopt it as a way of life. He advocated yoga for community, immunity and unity. He said that during the present corona pandemic, yoga has become more important because this virus affects the respiratory system. In yoga, there are many types of pranayam that strengthens the respiratory system, and the beneficial effects have been witnessed for long. The Prime Minister praised the efforts of the government in combating the pandemic and took pride in sharing that the beneficiaries of Ayushman Bharat scheme crossed over 1 crore. The Prime Minister said that at one point we are fighting coronavirus and also disasters like cyclone Amphan. He lauded the courage of the people of West Bengal and Odisha in combating the super cyclone Amphan. He sympathized with the losses suffered by farmers in states that faced locust attacks. The ordeal they faced and the manner in which they showed their grit and determination is commendable, he said. The Prime Minister underlined the need for the current generation to go in for realizing their responsibility to save water as well. He stressed on the need to save rainwater and said everyone must strive for water conservation. He also requested countrymen to serve nature this Environment Day by planting some trees and making resolutions in order to forge a daily relationship with nature. He said that lockdown has slowed down life, but it has given an opportunity to look at nature properly, and wild animals have begun to come out more. That was today's commentary entitled Prime Minister Urges Caution While Fighting COVID-19. It was scripted and read by Kaushik Rai, AIR News Analyst. This broadcast came to you from the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.
India is home to several UNESCO World Heritage Sites, ranging from natural wonders to architectural marvels. While some are keepers of the magnificence of history, others are a safe and lush haven for biodiversity to flourish. In our program India Eternal, we will take you for a virtual tour of these incredible sites. Let us know more about the history, the architecture, and the importance of these World Heritage Sites situated in India. In our program India Eternal, today we bring you a talk on Ajanta Caves, written and narrated by Suhail Hashmi, historian and filmmaker.
You cannot claim to have seen India if you haven't seen her during the monsoons. And you cannot claim familiarity with Indian art if you haven't been to Ajanta. So plan your next holiday to India during the monsoons, ideally between mid-July and mid-August, and get to do both at one go. Come see the stunning murals inspired by the life of the Buddha and the Jatakas at the UNESCO World Heritage Site of 30 man-made caves at Ajanta, and the stunning rolling hills of the Sahyadris draped in hundreds of shades of green at the peak of the monsoons. All this just a 2.5-hour drive from Aurangabad airport, connected by rail, road and air to Delhi and Bombay. Whoever chose the site to create this retreat for Buddhist monks more than 2000 years ago had an eye for beauty and must have known how absolutely charming the place becomes during the monsoons. Dense forests, a narrow 76-meter deep horseshoe-shaped gorge tucked away behind a curve on the face of a sharp, rocky scarp to ensure peace and privacy for quiet contemplation and meditation. Round the curve of the gorge are several waterfalls, big and small. One can hear them splashing on the hard rocks from outside the caves at the peak of the rainy season. Buddhist monks stayed here for a couple of months or more during the monsoons, taking a break from their daily routine of traveling, preaching and begging for alms, to study and debate with their peers and learn from their seniors. The caves, built at different times and at different levels, are spread across half a kilometer, overlooking the river Waghora. The caves were excavated as needed, sometime during the 3rd century BCE and others in the 5th century CE. Each cave was originally connected to the river below through a flight of steps, now mostly missing, and replaced with a wide promenade connecting all the caves. Hyun Sang, who travelled to India in the mid-7th century, and others mentioned the caves, but then they dropped off public memory. Locals knew of the existence of the caves that had been taken over by the forest by the early 19th century. It is thanks to a local shepherd boy who led John Smith, an officer of the British Army who happened to be in the area hunting tigers, to one of the caves on 28th April 1890. That cave is now known as Cave Number 10. John Smith went to a nearby village, mobilized the villagers to cut the undergrowth to clear a path to the caves, and promptly scratched his name and the date on the image of a bodhisattva. The rediscovery of the caves and their exquisite craftsmanship took the world of art and archaeology by storm. The delicate lines of the human figures, their lifelike proportions, the ability of these sensuous works to bring to life the attires, the drapes, the jewellery, the rhythm of daily life, and the depiction of courts, homes, busy markets, birds and animals, real and mythical, and other aspects of daily life, were commented upon and documented extensively. Very soon, Ajanta became a world-famous tourist spot. The murals and sculptures continue to attract tourists from all corners of the world, making Ajanta one of the most visited historical sites in India. Described in the UNESCO World Heritage Citation as the finest surviving examples of ancient Indian art, particularly expressive paintings that present emotion through gesture, pose and form. These masterpieces of Buddhist religious art influenced Indian art that followed, and modern Indian art, beginning with the early 20th century artists of Shantiniketan, was deeply influenced by Ajanta murals and continues to resonate in the works of many artists, designers and architects even today. All the caves, including a few unfinished ones, can be divided in two broad categories, the Chaityagrahas and the Viharas. There are 6 Chaityagrahas or prayer halls, and they are easy to identify. Each Chaityagraha has a large arched window above the gate. Inside there is a hall, and opposite the main gate there is either a stupa representing the Buddha or a sculpted image of the Buddha. There are verandas on 3 sides and space for circumambulation behind the stupa or the image of the Buddha. 2 of the Chaityagrahas, now numbered 9 and 10, were built in the 2nd century BCE and belong to the Hinayan tradition. During this period, the Buddha was not depicted in human form but as the stupa. And you can observe this representation in these 2 caves. The other 4 Chaityagrahas, namely caves number 15A, 19, 26 and 29, were excavated during the 5th and 6th centuries CE. The Mahayana tradition of Buddhism that venerated the Buddha as a homomorphic icon had become dominant by this time, and you would therefore see the image of the Buddha in these caves and the monasteries built in the 2nd phase. The Viharas or monasteries, there are 24 of them, were used as living quarters or shelters for the monks. The Viharas are also not difficult to recognize because of the absence of windows above the gate and by the presence of cells used as sleeping quarters for the monks. 8 out of the 30 caves numbered 3, 5, 8, 14, 23, 24, 28 and 29 are unfinished or damaged by natural causes, and you can miss them if pressed for time. But if you are not in a rush, go see them, for a visit will reveal to you the methods employed while excavating these caves. The excavation began from the ceiling, and so probably no scaffoldings were needed. In most caves, the ceilings look like inverted boats. It was perhaps this shape that inspired the excavators, and they even imitated boat ribs and planks in the ceilings. You must not return without visiting caves numbered 1, 2, 9, 10, 16, 17 and 26. Cave number 1 for its profusion of murals, especially the images of bodhisattvas, including Padmapani, and illustrations based on the Jatakas. Cave 2 for its sculptures and murals depicting the Buddha and ceiling decorations. Cave 7, despite being a monastery, gives the appearance of a Chaityagraha and has a profusion of carved images of the Buddha and captivating female figures on door frames. Cave 10 is the one that John Smith first saw, and if you look carefully, you will find his name and date scratched above the image of the Bodhisattva near the right-hand rear corner of the cave. I will not talk about the art treasures that await you in the other caves. The monsoons are approaching. Pack up your bags and begin planning your journey to Ajanta.
You were listening to the program India Eternal, brought to you by the General Overseas Service, External Services Division of All India Radio.
If the current COVID-19 outbreak has got you feeling stressed out and anxious, then a calming yoga flow can definitely help. We care for your well-being and therefore, we bring for our listeners Yoga on Radio. Practice some easy asanas with Yogacharya Surakshit Goswami and keep yourself healthy and rejuvenated.
Dear listeners, today we will practice Kati Chakrasana. This asana is very good for treating diabetes and obesity, as Kati Chakrasana puts pressure on the stomach, kidneys, liver, intestines, pancreas and rectum. It improves overall health and gives relief from constipation and gastric problems. The asana gives strength to the abdominal muscles and removes excess fat from the waist, making it slimmer. It increases suppleness in the body and balances the energy. The asana removes stiffness in the thighs, hips, backbone and the waist and makes them strong. Kati Chakrasana also removes stiffness in the lower back. Precautions. Be careful to guard against any jolt while doing this asana. Do not do it in haste or by force. Keep the legs close to the ground as much as possible.
Lie on your back and fold both the legs one by one at your knees. Keep both the knees joined together. Keep your elbows bent and hands under your head. While inhaling, bring both the knees to the left hand side and twist your head to the right. Don't try to force your knees to the ground. Bend them as much as you can easily. In the end, both the ankles and the knees will rest on each other. Breathe normally and stay in this position for as long as you can. Then lift one knee at a time and also bring your head to the normal position. Repeat the process on the right side as well. The same exercise can be done keeping space between the two legs. It should be performed 3 times on both the sides. This asana can also be done by folding one leg at a time.
During lockdown in India, many citizens are voluntarily participating in creating awareness and helping the less privileged.
Hi, my name is Shruti and I'm a handwriting analyst by profession. I have spent around 19 years studying this science, and today with All India Radio, we are here to share some tips on how to manage stress using your handwriting. Our brain is not very adapted towards certain changes. With the onset of COVID and the lockdown, we are bound to feel stressed, and in some cases even depression may sink in. It is important for us to take care of our health. And all of this can be seen in your handwriting. Let me explain. From an idea to the piece of paper, handwriting is basically a coordinated effort between your brain, your muscular system, and the medium through which you are writing. It could be your hand, it could be your feet, or your mouth. Emotion plays a very important part while we write. For example, think of a person that you love and write "I love you" against their name for 5 times. And then think of a person that you don't like and try and write "I love you" against their name for the 5 times. You will see the difference. Similarly, when stress is there in your life, there will be sudden increase in the pressure in your handwriting. The size will become disproportionate. The sudden burst of energy can be seen, which means somewhere the pressure will be suddenly become very high and somewhere it will just go numb. And lastly, the size of your signature will increase. If you have children at home, do observe their handwriting as well. They may not be able to express it in a way that we can understand. Having said that, handwriting is also a very easy tool to manage stress. If you're aware, just take a piece of paper, a newspaper, a used paper, colorful pens, and all that you have to do is make circular movements on these paper for 5 to 10 minutes. You don't have to learn a new skill. All that you have to do is discipline yourself for 5 to 10 minutes every morning, every evening. And if you write a journal, try and do these exercises just before you write these journal. Nothing, I repeat, any piece of paper, any color pencil, color paper, whatever helps you to be there. And it could be even a fun activity between your parents, between your family as well. All that you have to do is make shapes. Let me show you. You can make shapes like these anywhere. The S's, the waves, and the flowers. And last but not the least, you can make the eyes. You have to make precise eye dot. Let me show you how one of my client has done it. You see? I hope these tips are useful to you. I will come back with more. Till then, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay happy. Take care.
This broadcast came to you from the digital channel of the General Overseas Service of All India Radio.